All right. Hey, on Zoom, if I'm like super loud, let me know because I know last time it was a problem. But yeah. Anyways, welcome everybody to the ACE internship Q&A panel. If you're on virtual, welcome. If you're here in person, it's great to see you. So first of all, I've mentioned it like 4 times now, but if you hadn't had the chance, make sure to fill out our sign-in form. You can just scan the link. It helps us out a lot. Is someone on Zoom in here? I'm assuming that was what that was. It's fine if you were. Anyways, but yeah. So what we're gonna do is first start out by introducing our panelists, and then afterwards, I'm just gonna ask like 3 very broad questions and let each panelist kind of elaborate on that, and just for you to get an idea of their overall experience. And then after that, it's open Q&A. So that's open for both in Zoom and in person. If you're on Zoom during that portion of time, if you can, it just makes it easier if you type it in chat rather than talk. It's already hard enough to manage stuff, unfortunately. But if you're in person, just raise your hand and I'll repeat your question on Zoom. But that'll be the second half of the meeting. So to kick it off, we'll start with introducing our panelists. And the first person is Savas. Let me hand you the mic.
Hi, everybody. I'm Savas Varakidis. I'm a 4th-year computer engineering student. In the past couple of summers, so 2 summers ago, I worked with U.S. Special Operations Command as a software engineering intern. And then this past summer, I was with Collins Aerospace as a software engineering intern. And then what's next? Undecided for what I'm going to do after graduation.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris. I'm a 4th-year computer engineering student. The last 2 summers I've spent with Microsoft as a software engineer intern on the same teams. And after graduating, I'll be returning to that same team.
Hi, everybody. I'm Fatima Al-Fassi. I'm a 4th-year computer engineering student. And then this past summer, I interned at Texas Instruments as a technical sales engineering intern. I've also accepted another internship at Texas Instruments for the next summer for the same role. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
Hey everybody, my name is John Dillon. I'm a 4th-year computer science engineering major, and I have a minor in disabilities and society. I've interned both at Swisslog. That was actually before I even came to college. I was an IT support intern there, so got to do a lot of cool stuff in the logistics industry. And most recently, I was a intern in software at GoHealth, and I'm actually currently still working there during the semester. And I work on the back-end internal tooling team.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christopher. I'm a 3rd-year computer science major. And last summer, I was a STEP intern at Google, and I've recently accepted an offer to come back as a software engineering intern next summer.
Hey everyone, I'm Bobby. I'm a 4th-year computer engineering and mathematics double major. I have interned at Citibank 2 years in a row, and in the within the institutional clients group, which basically means all parts of Citi except the one where you have your checking account. And after I graduate, I'll be returning there to go full-time in that part of the business.
So this is Andrew. I'm obviously not Andrew, but Andrew cannot make it. He has an interview tonight with these people. And yeah, but if you want to ask questions to Andrew specifically, you can join Open Source Club. You've probably heard of it. If you haven't, I can send a link to you later. Just Slack me. But he'd love to answer any questions. So yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dominic. I'm a 4th-year computer engineer. And 2 summers ago, I interned at Atlas Networks, a cloud and DevOps company where I served as a PHP and JavaScript intern. And I absolutely hated it. So last summer, I interned at Lockheed Martin as a Java intern, and that was a lot better. But I'm still kind of undecided on the full-time route.
Cool. So, and also I'm Greg. I am moderating, even though I'm wearing an Amazon shirt, but I might throw in like one thing and that's it. But if you have questions specific to Amazon, you can ask me afterwards. So yeah. So to start off, like I said, I'll ask a few broad questions and we'll just go down the line in order about your guys' experience. So the first question is, broadly, what was your application process like for this position? And you can go into, just to give you some ideas, how many internships did you apply to overall? And what if you don't have the skills necessary listed for an internship?
Okay, that's a lot to go for off the start. Yeah, sure. I guess I'll say, especially for your first internship, you want to apply to as many companies as possible. For me, I think specifically I did like 70 or 80 applications just of my sophomore year alone. And in terms of the qualifications, I want to clarify that you don't need to have every single qualification listed on the application. Like if you fulfill the basic qualifications in like 25 or 30% of the advanced, you have a solid shot and you might as well go for it. Because the worst thing they can say is no, and you're just in the exact same spot you were before. Beyond that though, usually I would start applying as soon as possible. I would recommend late August, but it's not late August. So honestly, right away or as soon as possible, and just kind of do like 3 or 4 applications every day and just kind of keep putting yourself out there. I don't want to take up all the time, but I do want to say one more tip. If you do see like company events, so like info sessions or, ACES info sessions next year where we literally bring in companies, if you go in there, they usually have sign-in options. These are fogging up. I swear, I hate these things. I'm sorry, but usually if you go to like company events, they'll have sign-in forms you can put in your resume and you get put into a much smaller pool versus if you were applying online. So career fairs, info sessions, great place to put yourself in a limited application pool.
All right. So there was a few questions. I think the one that I'm going to talk about is how I ended up getting my internships. So my first one with U.S. Special Operations Command, that one kind of felt like a fluke to me, and honestly goes off of the advice that Dominic said, where you need to really apply everywhere and anywhere, just because you don't know who's going to invite you for an interview and who's going to want you to come work for them. And I got that job with little to no web development experience, and that's what I was doing that summer. But they were completely fine with that, and they taught me basically everything I needed to know for that job. After that, things became a lot easier for me to get internships. I got the Collins internship at the ECE Career Showcase last fall. So technically the ECE Career Showcase is still going on. I think it runs through tomorrow. But basically once I went there, after people saw that, I was in my 3rd year and that I had had previous internship experience, they found me just as a more attractive candidate. So that first internship really helped me a lot. And so I got a few offers there and I decided Collins fit my needs the best. And that's why I went with Collins. But another tip that came from that was that the Collins recruiter remembered me from when I had met him in person at a previous showcase. So going to these showcases and talking to recruiters is important, even if you don't end up getting a job or an interview offer, just because they might remember you and say, hey, I had a really great conversation with you. We weren't ready for you then, but now we're ready for you because you have more skills, more experience. So yeah, those are my 2 cents.
Yeah, I guess I'll go off what Salvis just said. I definitely want to echo that the ECE career fair and all the career fairs that go on during the semester are really valuable. That's how I got my opportunity. It's kind of weird because actually the first meeting I made ever is the job that actually offered me an interview, and that's the one I ended up taking. I mean, I met with 15 different recruiters during that career fair, but I only actually applied to that role and I got accepted. I think the technical sales engineering role is a little different than things like software. So it's a little bit less competitive. But if you have a knack for business or strategy or analysis, I definitely recommend the role. It's still rich in engineering material and concepts. But yeah, definitely if you don't feel like you're qualified for a role, I still think it's a really good idea to still apply. People see your name, they might look at your resume, they might remember something about you. It's really good to make connections. And another thing that I would say is go to those meetings at the career fairs, look at the role you want, but if you talk to recruiters, sometimes they'll see the strengths that they see in you and they'll recommend you for another role that actually might be a better fit for you that you had no idea about. So that's definitely why I think it's really important to go to those career fairs. And yeah, that's mostly what I have to say, but thank you.
Let's see. So there's two things I most want to cover with this point. For on the topic of career fairs, I actually personally didn't have a lot of luck from getting opportunities from the career fairs, but what it did present to me in the beginning was something to shoot for. So when I went on in my first year or second year, I had nothing to show on my resume, and I just asked them, "Hey, what are you looking for in your candidates?" And from there, I was kind of able to extrapolate, like, okay, they're looking for someone maybe 1 year older than me with like these sorts of classes or these sorts of experiences, and then that gives you something to shoot for about how to become a more competitive candidate. And another thing is, and this ties more to when I got my first opportunity with Microsoft, I actually originally applied to their Explorer program, which is something focused for their freshman and sophomore engineers kind of trying to go in, where it's technically something where they're not expecting you to do full software engineering work, but they're like going to kind of let you see what software engineering looks like, what project management looks like. And they're, again, looking for less experience from you overall. So that's really, really great opportunities for first and second years. But then also from that, I went through their interview process, which was, again, simpler because they're expecting less out of you. And then they actually just kind of bumped me up to a normal software engineering position when they gave me the offer. So the takeaway I'm trying to give from this is definitely, if you're within your first or second year, don't sleep on those opportunities. It's just usually getting your foot in the door is the hardest part with a lot of these larger companies. So their software engineering big positions are going to have literally thousands upon thousands of resumes and applications coming into them, while you can definitely already move yourself into a much less cramped competition space if you just go for these lower positions, which may then turn into normal roles. I had a friend who works full-time at Google right now, who only did a single tech interview her entire time at UF because she just got one through like Google's STEP program, and then just kept taking the return offers that turned into a full-time. So definitely keep an eye out for those.
Hey, everybody. When it comes to how I got my STEP internship application wise, there were three main things that I made sure to do. The first one, kind of like Dom was saying, absolutely shotgun out tons of resumes. Just flood the internet with copies of your resumes. All of my friends would think I was just nuts with how many times I'd just be in between classes at the library. I just applied to 4 more internships. I think, let's see. From my first day as a freshman to the time I got my Google offer, a little over 200 applications and 199 rejection emails before I finally had some success. So absolutely learn to be completely immune to failure. The first rejection email maybe hurts a little bit, but the second one hurts a little bit less. But by the time you're 50 in, you don't even care. The 100, 150, it doesn't even matter. If I were to go into my Gmail and just filter for "we regret to inform you," there'd be hundreds of emails in there. So just absolutely shotgun out as many resumes as you can. It doesn't matter what they're for. If they say software engineering internship, just throw your resume in there. And then the second thing I did was made sure to really focus on getting my resume right. I read all sorts of stuff all over the internet, went to tons of workshops put on by companies here, and I found that there were 2 things that companies really want on your resume. The first is projects. But when I got my Google offer, I had like 24 GitHub projects, just different repositories with big projects. So absolutely do not wait to code until you're in a class that forces you to with an assignment. Just if you have a creative idea for something you want to build, just go build it and then put it on your GitHub. And then after you've done this a bunch of times, you'll get better and better. And eventually you'll have a couple of things you can put on your resume and have some really interesting bullet points. I did this, I worked with these tools, I made these design choices. And that's the first half of your resume. And the second half is involvement, club leadership positions. Just go and find any club related to your major, like ACE, and then go and find any leadership leadership position, any chair position, officer position. And if there's an opening, just apply for it. Having anything to show that you can be a leader within the field and you can be responsible for other people and for completing a task, having those two things on your resume will really help out towards having an actual recruiter not throw your resume in the trash pile and actually move it into the shortlist pile. And the third step for applying is make sure you just know data structures and algorithms like the back of your hand. After you take the class itself, you should have an okay handle on it, but you want to be practicing LeetCode all the time. Make sure you know stacks, queues, arrays, searching and sorting, depth first search, breadth first search, graph algorithms, dynamic programming, all that stuff. And just practice that over and over and over. So when you actually get frequently when you apply, companies will just email you an automated online coding challenge. So it'll be basically like 3 LeetCode problems. You have to turn on your webcam like you're taking an exam over Zoom for a class. And you just do the coding problems and turn it in. That's a part of the filtering process for a lot of companies out there. I know I did a bunch of those. So if you can spam out resumes as much as possible, have your resume be solid with projects and with leadership experience, and then make sure you know your data structures and algorithms to get through that online coding challenge filtering process. Those are the steps I use to get my Google internship, and I'm sure it'll work for you.
Hey guys, so I really agree with Chris on especially the resume building thing. I think that was something that I focused on a lot, of just being able to not only build a resume that sparks a little bit of interest in a recruiter and makes it catch their eye, but also builds a lot of talking points. When I was hunting down my internship, I probably applied to a total of 12 companies or so, not too many. But one thing I really focused on was making sure that recruiters knew who I was and trying to network a little bit like that. Like a career showcase, when I went, everybody who I talked to, I made sure to get an email from them afterwards so I could follow up, try to push things on to the next step, and just try to make sure that people remember my name. That was one thing that I found really helpful, especially for some of these big companies. They might have thousands of applicants, and some of them they never even see face to face. It is just piles of resumes building up. So somebody who's going to make a final decision, remembering your name, your face, is going to be way more important than a lot of other things I found, especially with City. The internship that I actually got my sophomore year was a junior only position, but I had made a good connection with somebody who I knew at the company. And they basically said to the recruiter, hey, this guy is really good. You should push him on to the next step. So without a computer going through, seeing what year I was in and immediately asking me, I had moved on to the interview past that. And I was able to show that I could handle the position. So I was able to get it. So really just almost being a pest to them so they don't forget who you are, I found is really helpful. And it works out very much in your favor. So I'd say that's probably my biggest point.
Well said. So you guys are probably hearing everything everybody's saying right now, and you're probably freaking out a little bit because it's very overwhelming. And I think everybody could probably attest to that, because you will probably send out, I mean, I know in my personal case, I was like 100+ applications, and obviously you take one, but I maybe had 2 or 3 offers, and that's lucky. So it's a game of numbers. Play the game to your advantage. So send out as much as you can. It's a game at the end of the day. I mean, LeetCode is not meant to be indicative of what you're going to actually do on the job. And I think that that's sad. And I think everybody could kind of say that that's a little sad. But the good thing is that it's a resource that's out there that you can go, and it's free, and you can do that. So, I mean, if you can do a problem a day, 2 problems a day, that's going to set you up for success, and you will get into that interview. If once you get it, it will not be an issue. If you truly discipline yourself to do that, and it's going to suck and it's going to be hard, but if you can do that, that will totally open a door for you. Likewise, don't be afraid to find people to work on stuff with. I think everybody who is sitting in this room right now, probably in the same shoes. So find people that will work on LeetCode with you. Find people who will critique your resumes, find people who will be able to, share the same sentiments you're feeling. Because I know I didn't even get an internship my sophomore year. And I didn't even get like past the first round interviews at any companies. And so I remember going into my junior year trying to get an internship, being like, this is do or die, because I'm either gonna, go into my final year not having a internship to have experience to get a full-time offer, get a return offer. And that is the biggest obstacle you will get. I think it's harder than graduating. I think it's harder than getting a full-time offer, because if you can get that internship, you will probably get a return offer. You will probably have companies knocking on your door when you go to apply to them full-time. So right now is probably the most important thing that you could do during your time here. It's not GPA. It's not what classes you take. It's the connections you build. It's the things that you can learn to market yourself, because software engineering, if you want to do software engineering professionally, is very different than computer science. Like machine learning, there are certain things you can learn in school that will be useful, but software engineering as a whole is a completely different animal. So getting out there, getting yourself into that opportunity will be the best thing that you can do for yourself. So, when it's hard and when you feel like you want to give up, just remember that, you have a goal that you're working towards and what that will propel you forwards into, for your entire career. Because I think that everyone who has a good internship, gets propelled into a very, successful time. So I think that's my biggest advice, is just hang in there. It'll take time, it'll be slow, but it's worth it.
Thanks. Cool. Yeah. So the only thing I'd like to add for freshmen and sophomores, if you DM yourself .ace on Slack, we haven't updated it in a while, but there's a list of freshman and sophomore internships that are like specifically recruiting you. So I definitely recommend checking that out. And the other thing, I think a few people brought up mentioning clubs. That's a very important part of your resume. ACE applications open up around November-ish for e-board and chair stuff. So definitely recommend running in elections and also applying for chair positions, because I know like for some people up here and for others as well, that's how we got our internships too. So yeah, awesome. So that did take a good amount of time. I'm only going to ask one more question for the panelists, and then we'll open it up. We'll start with Zoom questions because some people have already asked them, and then we'll go on to in-person questions. So I'm sure we'll get a lot of questions about the interview itself. So I want to ask you guys, how was your internship specifically? And I think some of you have already gone over it, but some things you could talk about. How long was it? What did you do in your spare time during your internship? Advice on success, and just overall takeaways, like what you would do differently. So start with Dom.
Alrighty, so I guess I can just divide up between the two internships I had. So the first one was like startup-esque, like kind of like a small company, local town. It was maybe about a 2.5-month process. And the first week or two was just kind of like getting myself acclimated, running through some training programs, getting some proper certifications, and just becoming accustomed to the standards that they set forward and the languages that they use. The reason why I didn't really like my first internship too much was because it was in PHP. Now, here's an important thing, is that being in an internship, it's also just as much figuring out what you don't want to do versus what you actually do enjoy doing. Now, that being said, I didn't actually just like straight up tell my manager, yo, I hate this, can I leave? I still managed to do the work. I managed to ask plenty of questions, but I also did express to him, hey, this isn't exactly what I'm really looking for. Can you offer some other options? And he was able to pull that off. There were several projects going on at a time, so I was able to switch onto something the front end, which I also hated. And then I switched to back end, and then we were happy again. So the point is like communicating with your manager, because they want to be able to help you figure out what you want to do in life. So don't be afraid to express a little bit, I won't say disapproval, but favorism towards another option or another job. And in terms of my free time, there were some options. I say really the most important thing was connecting with the people around me, just having some casual conversations, figuring out what they did in school, how did they get to where they were now, and just basically some advice on how to do like basically better as a software engineer overall. And actually, I think I was going to cut off here so everyone else could speak.
All right. So what did I do at my first internship with US SOCOM? I was doing web development, and I was a back-end software developer, and the interns were working on a web development project that we were going to deliver at the end of the summer. So I was back-end working in Python there. That summer was during COVID, like really like COVID way back then. And so I was staying at home because it was in Tampa. I actually got to be in person for that, which was like really weird for a lot of people just because most internships went virtual. So I was basically work and then come home, play video games in my free time. I feel like it's a lot of us. And then this past summer when I was at Collins, I was working on traffic collision avoidance software, which is basically make sure planes don't crash into each other in the sky. My parents said they're not going to fly on planes anymore, knowing that I was working on that. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was in C++, definitely more of what I like to do because I'm more into embedded stuff, low level programming. And then in my free time, I was in Melbourne, Florida. I went to the gym. The beach was right there. Never really went. Played video games, and then saw friends in Gainesville and in Tampa when I could.
So as far as my internship at Texas Instruments, it was of course 100% online. So I actually asked the College of Engineering if they had any office space to use because I don't have reliable internet at home to do work like that. So actually that was one interesting thing. I would come on campus every day. So I basically simulated a work day where I'd get up in the morning and then leave around 5:30 or so. So I think that was like a good habit that made sure I got my work done. But as far as my work, I had like 4 major projects to work on, and some of them had more of an engineering aspect and some of them had more of a sales aspect to them. The biggest project I worked on was like a joint sales simulation where I was paired with another intern, and we had like this case of this company that needed like better Bluetooth technology on their hardware design, and we basically had to come up with like a design for them for their board based on their specifications. And I do want to clarify, I worked for Texas Instruments. I didn't do anything with calculators. That's a common question. Yeah, all my friends think I sold calculators, so that was fun. But yeah, and then another thing that was important for my internship was like reaching out to customers or potential customers. So that was one of my projects. I got 10 accounts and I had to do cold calls. This was very businessy, salesy, but in the best way possible. And, I was basically looking to see if I could, review their schematics and see if Texas Instruments has any like suitable parts to fit on their hardware design at, a better price. And it was also a unique culture right now a unique climate right now because of the silicone shortage. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. So we had a lot of frustrated customers who were like, just get me parts and get them now. And, it was a good learning experience. I really enjoyed it. It's pretty competitive, so it's nice. And as far as like how my days went, sometimes I'd swim because I could go to the pool at UF. And then of course I'd play video games. And then other times I would sit at home and stress about my projects, but that's more of me having a lack of, disconnecting. But yeah, I just stress about my projects at times, but everything worked out nicely. I mean, they want me back, so I hope that was a good enough sign. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so spanning 2 different summers, under the same team, I worked under Outlook Mobile, under Android. The first time around, I then immediately did only iOS work for some reason, mostly working in TypeScript and Swift, building a cross-platform library with another intern who would manage the Android side. And then the summer after that, I did all client-facing work on Android. So that is ideally working in Kotlin, but then unfortunately working in Java. And my general day would kind of look like I did full work from home for both of them. I just worked here in Gainesville, working out of my bedroom. A lot of these larger companies would, for sort of work from home setup, they at least sent me hardware. I'm assuming it was probably similar for some of y'all, where I would roll out of bed around 9, check my emails, then kind of start to work for the day. Both of these projects span the entire 10 weeks of the internship and foresaw the entire part of development process, which includes initial feature planning, development time, testing, compliance, aka like, are you releasing stuff that's like legally allowed to be released given software licenses, as well as rollout. And at least within my internship, it was definitely the sort of thing where you get to see that entire process. There's not too much hand holding unless like you go to your mentors or your managers to see that sort of thing, which I found very, very compelling and actually gained a lot of knowledge from that. But yeah, that's generally how it went.
All right, so at my internship at Google, I was working on the Google Chat backend team, and I was using Java. And my project was, so there's a graph-based database that stores this user joined this chat room, this user joined this chat room. And due to old design reasons, there were 2 graph edges for every membership. But due to a new change, I had to delete over 3 billion existing graph edges using a distributed data processing job. That's basically like MapReduce, but better, basically. So I was writing server endpoints in Java, and I was using a distributed data processing framework to accomplish this task. And I participated in the whole software development lifecycle. I was there for design and planning and writing the software itself, code review, submitting code for approval, and testing afterwards. And I'd say one of the biggest things I remember was how hands-off it was. It was virtual, like many of my peers' internships here, and they just kind of gave me the project and let me run with it. They gave me all the documentation I needed and lots of really nice tools to explore the internal code to the project. So personally, I really enjoyed that. I know lots of other people would be more collaboration and hands-on, but I loved just being left alone to my own devices to just explore things and do my own research and figure out solutions. And it was 12 weeks long. And building off of that, I suppose my biggest tip for if being at an internship, how to get a return offer, is do exactly that. Do your own independent research and try and bother your manager as little as possible. So that was my goal. They gave me all this freedom and just barely micromanaged me at all. I didn't have contact with my mentor except when I wanted to and when we had once a week meetings. So I try to take that freedom and take advantage of it and do all my own research. And I think that's what got me the return offer, is my manager told me how impressed he was at my ability to do my own research and just independently figure things out based on the documentation and reading other code and things along those lines.
All right. So I had 2 internships that were surprisingly very different. The first one, because of COVID, they really scrambled to figure out what to do with the interns. So it was only a 5-week internship, and it was all generic training, presentations, and networking. But the second internship was a lot better. It was a lot of fun because I actually figured out what to do with us. So I got put on a team, and it was a little bit of a boring financial product, but basically I worked on a large product that dealt with managing a database of receipts for trades in different equity markets. So I created kind of a full stack page to be added on to the overall app. And what my page basically did was just a way to help the end user be able to search and sort through the receipts easier. I used Java for the back end and Angular for the front end. And it was kind of similar where I was given this project, given a rubric of what they were looking for, and it was my job to kind of go out, research how to do things, figure out how to put all the puzzle pieces together. But my manager and my mentor were always available. And at least once a day, I got to speak with one of them so that they could help me out if I had any questions and deal with just getting along with the process. And yeah, I guess that's my time.
Cool. So my internship, I got to work on a few projects. So my first project I was working on was migrating some old legacy systems into a new, more modern system from Groovy to Spring Boot with like new updates and stuff. And then my second part of the project was that after a few weeks, we finished that up. So I got to actually propose this new system to create to help QA and some devs, save a bunch of time. It's proprietary stuff, so I won't go into that. But I actually got to carry that out from beginning to actually like having it into production. So that was really cool. That was really fun. I think if anyone ever gets the opportunity to see the whole life cycle out, I think that's really useful. And now I'm working on kind of a similar thing where from beginning to end, building out another system to help manage some stuff internally to help speed things up with devs. So getting to work on the deployment pipelines and all that fun stuff. But I think the one thing I really wanted to say to cap it off was just don't stress out too much when you're there. Like, I know I struggled a lot with like decompressing when I was off my 8 hours every day or my 9 hours every day and not thinking about it. Like, as long as you don't go into the production databases and drop every single table and destroy the entire company and make their stock plummet, you will get a return offer and probably a full-time offer. So don't stress out too hard. And I also, personally, I bugged my mentor so much because I wanted to learn as much as I could. And that's my advice. So Chris had his own, maybe, so to each their own. To each their own, I say bug people as much as you can, learn as much as you can, because this is your time to really learn. So yeah.
Real quick. This is just going off of, I know we're going over time. This is going off of John's thing. Talk to your team. They're actual people. There's the point of like, obviously, like, don't go pestering your manager with like specific like engineering questions, but like if there's like a channel that your team shares, it's usually a lot quicker to just be like, hey, where is this within this massive database, or like within this like massive code repo, like where do I find this? And usually they can get back to you faster than like you might be able to do on your individual research. So there is that balance to it, because obviously you get a lot out of it when you do your independent research. There's also a lot to get by just talking to people. So just something to keep in mind.
Cool. Awesome. So now we're going to do some Zoom questions, and then we'll go to some in-person questions. So we have 6 questions on Zoom. And our goal, we're probably going to get to like hopefully 20, 25 questions. So basically what we're going to do is, if you want to answer a question, raise your hand. Most of these, we probably only need one person to respond, but if somebody wants to add, it's cool. So first question, I'm graduating in spring 2022, so that makes me a senior. Should I apply for an internship or a full-time job upon graduation? I've heard people say that internships are for those who will be returning back to school after their internship. This question is open to anyone.
So one thing that's very important in this situation is that you check for internships if they require you to be enrolled in the following fall semester or whenever the internship's going to end. So if it ends all the way in December, that you're enrolled in spring, just because that's something that I ran into with some companies. Because if you're considering grad school, you need to be accepted into a grad school in order to take a graduate internship. I do encourage you to apply to both and see what you can get, and just look at your options and then make a decision. But that's definitely something you need to consider.
Do you recommend putting class projects in your GitHub as well, or only personal projects?
I truly believe this comes down to a thing of more the merrier when it comes to your GitHub page itself. For what you showcase on your resume specifically, I would lean towards, of course, put something on there. So it's okay to put your class projects there in the beginning, but then as you start to develop your own personal projects, or you may have other opportunities that you got to talk about, or if you did, a project with a student, or definitely highlight those first, because recruiters get tired very fast when they see the exact same class projects on every single person's resume and they go to them. So it's something to differentiate yourself.
I've got something to add. Yeah. So I would also say that put your most complicated projects. So if you have, I had a deep learning class where you propose your own project, and that's easily my most complicated project I've ever done. So I put that on my resume. But I also have some projects that I just made up on my own in my free time. So go for definitely whichever ones reflect on you the best.
Don't get honor coded. Make sure your professor will let you put a class project on GitHub, because I've seen kids get in trouble for that. So please don't make that mistake.
Yeah,
don't get honor coded. Don't put class projects out there unless you have permission to do so.
Make sure the professor's good with you putting this stuff on. So it's not a situation where you're like putting a class assignment on it, and then someone could go copying that the next semester. That's usually where you get in trouble. Yeah, like it's good on the resume, but like GitHub. So like if you take like intro to software engineering, that's usually probably fine.
Yeah.
Probably, because they're all different. But don't go putting the Pocket Desk project from programming one.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a bad time.
No, I had a friend that I think he actually made his GitHub public and 3 kids copied his code. He got sent up honor code or honor report because of it. So yeah.
Yeah. So basically don't like ask your professor first, but you should like, if it's allowed, you should, but yeah. So this next question, I might actually answer this question myself. So how important is LinkedIn in the internship process? I'm sure somebody will want to add on. I know people that have not made, let me step in the camera so you can see me. I know some people that have never made a LinkedIn and have worked at like all the crazy companies and stuff, and it's worked out fine. And I know some people that have entirely relied solely on LinkedIn to get internships, or at least mostly. I won't say solely, I guess. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's a useful tool. I think it's something you should take advantage of. And especially when you're like, or a junior and senior and you're a little farther along, you might have some stuff in your headline and your summary and stuff. Recruiters will start messaging you and things like that, but it's not a requirement. So it's kind of like how much work you want to put into it. Anybody want to add on really quick or no?
Yeah, I'd also say you could just use LinkedIn as a job board. That's personally my favorite list of all the internships out of all of the ones out there. LinkedIn usually is a pretty good selection you can apply to.
I definitely think it doesn't hurt to keep your LinkedIn like updated and relevant. I think one thing that I think some recruiters would like is they get to see you a little bit more as an individual if they look you up. Like say they shortlisted you and then they see, oh, you had experience in something like maybe totally unrelated to the position you applied for, but it could have good character qualities or good qualities that would work in the workplace with them. Like I worked for 3 years in retail and I was, a supervisor. And like, I think that kind of reflected where I have, good communication and leadership qualities that are totally unrelated to engineering. But yeah, definitely. I think it's good to keep you like, it makes you look more, it makes you stand out and put your character on yourself. And recruiters tend to like that once they're interested in you.
So this next question, I have like a 20-second answer and somebody else wants that on in school. So should I apply for non-freshman internships if I won't be able to take DSA next semester? Would LeetCode be enough practice? So I would say yes, if you're confident you can LeetCode and prepare. That's what I did. It worked out for me. So I would say yes, just like LeetCode is enough. You just have to actually grind. So yeah, everybody gave me a thumbs up. Anybody else? I think we're good. Yeah. Let's see. Is it worth to apply for internships you want when you live far away from the company's office locations? Everybody gives a thumbs up. Yeah, for sure. And it's more exciting that way, honestly. So yeah. How would you judge when the best time to take an internship opportunity is based on your schedule?
So all of y'all probably have like some sort of 5-semester plan or something like that because you were required. Just consult with that and just figure out when you're going to graduate. Most places won't care if you graduate in 4.5 or 5 years, as long as you communicate, hey, this is when I'll be available for full time. So if it fits into your schedule, take it if you have an internship, right? And if you need that experience, take it.
No worries. And then does every internship have a technical/coding interview?
No, no. Every company is different. Usually they'll have, most companies will have different layers of rounds, but it really just depends on what company you're going for. If you're going for a bit like Silicon Valley or big name company, expect LeetCode tests, expect live coding interviews, expect multiple rounds. If you're going maybe like some more casual company or a smaller local company, you likely just have a talk with a manager, some mixture of behavioral questions, some mixture of them running through your resume and making sure you can actually like talk about the stuff you put on there. And a little bit also just about how much you feel with the company culture and how much you're like able to talk a little bit technically. So like general technical questions, like what's the difference between C++, and Java, stuff like that. So yeah, if you think you have to do a coding exam to get an interview, that's not true.
Awesome. So those are all the questions on Zoom right now. So in-person questions, if you have a question, just raise your hand. I'll call on you. So I saw you first.
Thank you everyone for your insights first. I technically this is something that I can Google, so if this isn't something that you know off the top of your head, then that's okay, I'll do that. Are the first or second year internships based on credits or years in college?
So just to repeat the question, are the first and second year internships based on credits or just your year in college?
They're just based on year. It's because not every university has the same concept of what a credit is. So they are mostly just, the thing they're mostly looking for is this your first or second year in university? Are you going to be graduating between 2 to 3 years from now? Is kind of what they're expecting.
Yeah. What's up?
Yeah. How do you find out about all the career fairs and the sessions and the recruitment meetings?
So the question was, how do you keep up with all the career fairs and info sessions and other things? And Fatima answered, follow our Slack. And I think that's definitely a good thing. So I have like a couple of things. I hate to steal it. So one thing in our random chat, we posted a message about a week ago with a list of like 21 clubs, which is a lot. Like you don't need to be in 21 clubs. There's no shot. But if you're in all the Discords and stuff, you can just check when all the events are and just literally be able to show up to anything. So that's one good way to do it. There is like a resource nobody uses, but I think it's cool. It's called Bits and Bytes. It's basically the UFCISE blog. And they post literally every single event coming up there. And a lot of things that kind of go under the radar in terms of recruitment and company events that not a lot of people see, not a lot of people show up for, but they're actually like really good. Like a lot of people get opportunities through that just by showing up because it's the recruiter to student ratio is very favorable, basically. So yeah. Anybody else got some? I don't know. Okay. Oh wait.
We have the Career Connection Center here, which does a little bit more broad strokes, all majors, all jobs, but they offer a lot of things, and they're the ones that run Career Showcase, like the really big one that comes for technical and non-technical days. And so they usually post that stuff. And also the ECE Advising has a page that they post a lot of things on because they also have info sessions. And there's some things on like the electrical side that they post about. So yeah, they shoot out announcements. Like that's how you probably would have found out about the ECE Career Showcase. And also there's the Career Fair Plus app, which a lot of UF career showcases are using. And that's how I found out about some that I didn't know were going on as I looked at the different showcases going on at UF listed. And then you can see the companies set up virtual meetings if they have them available and stuff like that.
Make it quick, make it quick. You're good though.
And half the time you'll actually see a piece of paper on the wall with the event on it. I know if you go into the CSE building over there, there's a big flyer on the wall for the CISE Career Fair. And you can also find in your classes, there'll be lots of clubs will make announcements. Oh, we have an info session with this company. Oh, we have an info session with this company.
And also, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I have the date exactly right, but I want to say the career fairs for both CISE and overall are in 2 weeks. I want to say it starts the 27th. So yeah, those events are coming up fast, but yeah.
So I was going to add, play to your strengths. If you're a very extroverted person, go in person and talk to people. If you're a more introverted person, there's nothing wrong with sending out shotgunning emails and shotgunning resumes. Just because one person will give advice doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. So cater to your strengths.
You'll notice the slide change. That's because I put like some upcoming events. So if you're interested in that stuff, feel free. Sorry, anybody else got a question? What's up? Yeah, so the question is, how long should you spend on LeetCode problems before you look at the solution and just LeetCoding in general?
Yeah, I hated LeetCode when I first started, so I totally feel what it's like. My personal approach was I always would learn how to do it first before I even attempted, because you're just going to waste your time half the time. You're going to sit there for a half hour and blanket the problem and kind of try to come up with solutions, and you're probably going to be wrong. So I would look through people's explanations, especially like in the comment sections, and try to actually get a deep understanding theoretically of how they did that. And I would really kind of think about it, and then I'd maybe simmer it over it and then try to go back and recreate it and think through that thought process, because it's not about memorizing code. It's not about memorizing things. It's learning your thinking process. Learning from someone else can be really beneficial. So that's what I would say.
So I don't know if you all agree with it, but I feel like there's two types of leak code problems that then equate to two types of technical interview types of problems. There's one where the answer is just, do you know the right data structure to use to just make your life really easy? The second is, do you know this really arbitrary algorithm that leak code is like for threesome or something like that, where it's like 3 rolling indexes to be able to accomplish this problem, where it's like, you're never going to use this in the real world. But then you may walk into a Facebook interview and they may ask you to do threesome. So it's a type of thing where it's going to suck. If you walk into a leak code problem and you're like, yeah, just use this data structure and you can kind of get it and you can get the pass, fantastic. Don't feel bad if you don't know this weird arbitrary way of solving it.
I got something to add as well. So also, the thing I did was there's another computer science club on campus. It's the competitive programming team. They have meetings like twice a week. And I went to every single one of their meetings for a whole semester. And every single meeting, they would present new data structures and algorithms theory. They would teach the theory and then everybody would break to go practice it. So that's a fantastic crash course in data structures and algorithms. It even goes beyond the class. And I definitely say learn the theory first and then go practice a couple of the examples, because you're not going to just stab blindly in the dark and figure out the optimal solution. You have to like learn it first and then practice a bunch of them so you can figure out the right algorithm for the right problem.
So this is especially from my earlier years, so my attention span was like of a goldfish. There are a lot of YouTubers who do like coding interviews. One of my favorite channels is Kevin Naughton Jr. I think he's a former Google or Microsoft employee. And so literally you could just like binge his videos. So just like if you're on like the bus or something and you want to watch like a medium weak code solution, watch him like kind of run through his thought process, run through the code line by line. That's a great way to get in some good solutions and places you might otherwise not be doing anything at all.
Hype. Cool. Other questions? So I think you had a question for a while. Is there a difference between a hackathon project and a personal project? Is one better than the other?
So I would say there isn't a huge difference in kind of where the project spurred from, but just more importantly, kind of what you can tell to the recruiter that you got out of it. So like a hackathon project is really great in the fact that it shows off group work. It probably works with, or like if you worked with new technologies or a lot of technologies and a lot of the things you got out of that, where a personal project can show off other things. It shows that you might have discipline to be able to stay with the same project for a long time, that you've really done a lot of research and you know something really in depth and well. So I wouldn't say that one is necessarily better than the other, but a lot of times having a mix of different things you can show off from the projects is the most important thing from it.
Yeah. I think it's like he said, like Bobby said, it's apples to oranges, and it's more about the quality of the project that you're putting out. Because if you can talk about 10% of the project, then they're not going to care. But if you know like 60%, 70%, 80% of really in-depth what happened in that project, and you can talk through why you made design decisions and why you did this and how you overcame roadblocks, that's what will get you an internship.
So there's also spinning a story. That would be the optimal thing. If you have an inspiration for the project and then a story of problems you encountered and how you overcame them with solutions and then the end goal of it, really telling a story behind a project is the best way to do it, I find.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, you got some?
We've done that. Yeah, so one of the TAs I know for data structures, he actually has this massive Google document that basically is a huge table of like all the projects and like social experiences he had, problems he overcame, leadership examples, group experiences, and he has them all compiled neatly in notes in that one document. So like before an interview, you can go over, practice those notes, practice some responses.
Dang, that's impressive. What's up? Welcome.
First off, welcome. Thanks for joining us on this adventure. So I'm assuming you're probably within like maybe like programming fundamentals 1 right now or something similar. So those classes are going to kind of give you the introduction of like, what does a programming language look like? How does programming logic work? And then once you kind of go from there, the best thing I could tell you is just kind of get excited about it, explore it. Like, whether it's like, once you kind of have some of the basics down, try to keep pushing the boundary of like what you might understand in it. And then when you hit that boundary, step back and be like, okay, what don't I understand about this? What can I do better? And that's just going to be a process to it. It's your first time programming. So you're going to have your highs and your lows of it, but it's just kind of something you kind of got to get the hang of. So you got to keep at, and yeah, it's just, it'll take time, but you got this. We got it.
So I would say don't burn yourself out too early. I know when I first started coding when I was in high school, I was wanting to get into it so fast, and I ended up, kind of like losing my passion for it in a certain sense. So I would say take the time, to also explore yourself and like have hobbies and make friends and do those things. Cause I know for me, when I first came to college, I was like, I want to work so hard and I want to be perfect, but like have fun, like learn it. Like that's what will really help you once you get into the field, is being able to work with other people. But that being said, I think Chris hit on it, the passion part. Do whatever makes you happy. If you like a certain thing of CS and you're interested by for loops, go read a lot about for loops, have fun with it.
Also, don't get nervous about not knowing how to code early on. I came into college programming 1, did not know how to code at all. And I'm still here, but I haven't gotten internships. So just take your time, take your classes, do well in them. And like they said, explore. Don't stress about it too much.
And real quick, I could offer some resources if you want to explore different languages. So actually, all UF students have this thing called LinkedIn Learning, which is just this massive portal of like online classes, tutorials, where you can basically learn about different languages. So if you want to take a 20 or 21-hour course at your own pace, learn the ins and outs of object-oriented programming or C++, you can do that. And the best part is, once you finish the course, it'll actually give you a certification on LinkedIn that says, hey, I dedicated time to learn this language. And that seems a bit too intense. On YouTube, Code Academy has fantastic tutorials. It's like 4-hour video, learn the basics of Python, which is a massive programming language that pretty much almost everybody here has been exposed to at one point or another. You can just kind of look around some videos, get a taste for like what's out there, and just kind of narrow yourself down from there.
We could probably do one more question. Otherwise, that's cool too. Oh, what's up? Oh, can you repeat the question? Sorry.
So basically, like, where do you find good internships or basically any offers? For me specifically, there's usually these GitHub links floating around, which is weird because usually related with code, but it's literally like this one website that has like 80 or 90 links linked directly to like different companies and like what positions they're offering. So I think right now there's a 2022 software internship list. I'm referring to a full-time software list right now. So I could probably drop down to Ace channel if I find it again. But yeah, if you look around or just like check around online, you'll probably be able to find massive lists that you can refer to.
I'm of a slightly different style where I'll see companies that I really like or places that I really want to work at, specifically like, oh, I want to go work in California. And then I'll go on their website, look at careers, and then filter based off of location, United States, internship, software engineering. And then if they have roles that match what I want, I'll apply and hope I hear back. Also, you might not hear back from a company at all. I know we've all had that where you've been ghosted forever by a company. So yeah, that's what I do, company websites.
Yeah, one other thing that I learned that being in CS and that general field, it's really special because it's important to every single industry. So a lot of times you think, oh, where can I look for a CS degree? And you just think of Google, Apple, Facebook, big names like that. But really almost any company you can think of has at least a pretty decently sized IT department or some kind of software development going on. So when I started out, I just thought of companies that like I used their services that I liked. Like I had just gotten back from a cruise and I decided, oh, I'm going to go see if there's anything in the cruising industry. And I ended up applying to like Carnival and Royal Caribbean. You would never think, but they have software development teams that have their whole internships. And because of that, nobody ever thinks of them. Their applicant pool is so much smaller. So just any company that you like really is likely to have an opportunity.
I would agree with that because I also think that, I mean, I worked at Go Health and they're a public company, but they're a smaller public company. And I've worked with some of the smartest people that I've ever met and some of the kindest people I've ever met. So you will never know. I always thought I wanted to work at like a thing, you know, like a Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, and you will never know until you really get into it. So don't be afraid just because it's a company is 3,000 people instead of 10,000, you know, there's levels to it. And just because it's a higher level doesn't always mean it's going to be better.
Yep. So the question was to find more specialized ones, like for freshmen and sophomores specifically, and those kinds of things, the ones with the acronyms. I can send a link in the Slack tonight if you want, and I have a pretty exhaustive list of a lot of the ones for underclassmen, but I think there's a pretty good subset of them in .ace as well. If you do that, if you just DM yourself .ace, and you go to freshman, second year internships. No worries.
Yeah, it's just kind of on that point of like, how do you find them? It's in the unfortunate fact that these are just positions like anything else, and you may need to go digging. So you might find a company, you might have a company that you really like, and then from there, go check, okay, is there any positions that can give me a possible edge, aka thumbs like the first year, second year ones? Otherwise, apply for the normal software engineering and pray. That's kind of how it goes.
So we do have two more questions here. Okay, what's your question? You want to? Yeah, we're gonna.
Yeah, I don't. I've been sitting at the same resume for a while. Usually I wouldn't recommend cover letters unless it's like a company you really like aspire to be at, like you really love that company. It's like maybe 1, 2, 3 custom resumes for like your top reach, love those companies. Otherwise, send out the same one, shotgun them out, get it out there.
I'll also add, they're reading a lot of resumes already. They probably don't want to read your cover letter.
Think of it as an investment. Don't waste your time on things that aren't going to help you. So if you're going to spend an hour writing a cover letter or customizing your resume, don't even bother with the position. If they want you to do a project that's going to take you 10 hours, I had a final round interview that they wanted me to write an application, like a whole entire application. I was like, yeah, sorry, I'm not doing that. So don't waste your time.
So final question. And the question is it worth applying to positions you've been denied from before? Yeah, everyone says yes, but let me.
Yes and no. I've had some companies where like you'll take an intelligence assessment or some weird thing that's not coding as well, and if you fail it, you might have to wait a year. So I've applied, taken assessments, been rejected, then applied again within like 6 months, and then been automatically rejected because they knew that I had failed the assessment, and it has a recharge cycle. So sometimes no.
You can tell a lot about a company based on the interview process, and you want to make sure you're going to a company that you're not going to hate for the 10 weeks you're there. So anytime I had a company that gave me an intelligence assessment or it was a 2-hour long coding interview, I was like, I might not want to go here. So treat yourself like a human being, respect yourself.
And just one last small thing, especially if somebody might remember you like a recruiter, it works really well. Like you'll have a really good chance coming back because those recruiters remember more faces than you expect.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing related to that is that if you show improvement on your resume from one year to the next, some recruiters actually take that to account. Not all, but some of them actually do. So it's worth applying to stuff your freshman year, even if you've got nothing, even if it's just all high school stuff. And then next year you show, oh, wow, you've joined a research lab and design team and you're an ace. I don't know. Like it's good stuff. Anyways, I had to plug it. So that concludes the meeting. I'm sure some of us will be hanging around for a little while outside if anybody has any other questions. For those on Zoom and those here, you can see a list that I copy and pasted within the last 20 minutes of some events coming up, but we're going to post them all in the Slack tomorrow. Basically, we have 3 intro sessions next week, and our second GBM will be October 6th, most likely with Accenture. Yeah, so thank you all for coming. Please give a big hand to our panelists for volunteering their time. Awesome. Yeah, and that concludes the meeting. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
Oh, and one more thing, if you guys had any questions that you didn't get to ask or you think of it, I'm sure all of us here on the panel would be happy if you send us a DM on Slack or something to answer anything else you can think of.
Or drop in random.
Yeah, or anywhere. We'll see it.
Just talk to us.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we gotta get.